All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Well, it's a nice cold day in Washington, D.C., and probably cold where many of our virtual attendees are coming from as well. But we are so happy to have all of you here with us today. We have a brilliant panel of experts from across the country who I cannot wait to hear from. I am Felicia Preissner, Vice President of March for Life, Government Affairs, Vice President of Government Affairs of March for Life. And in my role, I actively bring your March's voice to Capitol Hill and to state capitals across the country, advocating for protections for both mom and baby. I also oversee our growing state march program. It's been so exciting to watch us go from 8 states last year to doubling that in 2024, and then hopefully marching and changing hearts and minds in all 50 states. The theme for March for Life this year is pro-life with every woman for every child. In post-Roe America, it's critical that we rally behind the love and compassion that defines the pro-life movement. For decades, pro-life organizations have cared for women and families in need, especially in the most vulnerable moments. There are over 3,000 pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes nationwide, empowering women to make life-affirming choices, helping them overcome fear, poverty, abuse, addiction, so much more, just empowering these women to choose life through providing the resources and support they need. In fact, a Knights of Columbus Marist poll actually came out. It was, I believe, released today, showing that 83% of Americans support pregnancy resource centers and the life-affirming work that they do. 86% of Americans also believe that laws can protect both the mother and her unborn child. Yet sadly, despite this overwhelming public support, pregnancy resource centers across the country are facing increased legislative attacks post-Roe. Today, you will learn about these attacks, not only here in Washington, D.C., but across the country, as well as the constructive things you can do to push back on these. Today's panel discussion will kick off with our legal expert, Erica Steinmiller-Perdomo with Alliance Defending Freedom, who will highlight the types of legislative attacks PRCs are facing nationwide. Then we'll hear from Jonathan Keller with the California Family Council, who's fighting a daily battle for both PRCs and the unborn in a very pro-abortion state. Last but certainly not least, you will hear from a pro-life lobbyist, Jamie Dangers with SBA Pro-Life America, who will give an overview of the efforts underway in Washington, D.C. to remove protections for both mom and baby, but also highlight some bright spots. We have an extremely knowledgeable panel for you today, and I cannot wait to hear the information they will provide you today to become an advocate for life. Our first panelist, Erica Steinmiller-Perdomo, serves as legal counsel at Alliance Defending Freedom. Her work focuses on protecting life from conception to natural death. Before joining ADF, Erica clerked on the Florida Supreme Court and Florida's third District Court of Appeal. She also served as criminal prosecutor in Miami-Dade County. Erica earned her Juris Doctor from the Florida State University College of Law, where she served as the managing editor of the Law Review and vice president of the Cuban American Bar Association student chapter. She received her bachelor's degree from University of Miami. We are honored to have Erica here today with us to share her vast experience regarding what PRCs are facing in post-Roe America. Thank you, Erica.
Hello, everyone. I'm so pleased to be with you today and talk about this really important issue, dealing with the legislative attacks facing PRCs. It's been a year and a half since the U.S. Supreme Court's historic decision in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, which overturned the wrongly decided Roe v. Wade decision. Dobbs held that there is no right to abortion in our nation's Constitution, and it returned the right to the people through their elected representatives to regulate the issue of abortion. Now, the people at both state and federal level have the opportunity to affirm that unborn life is worthy of protection and ensure that women have real support. For nearly 50 years, the pro-life movement was unified behind one goal: overturn Roe. Now, the pro-life movement is facing countless battles. From state ballot initiatives aimed at legalizing abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy, to the Biden administration's efforts to force taxpayer dollars to go to funding abortions, and the FDA permitting mail-order chemical abortions. These efforts are not just aimed at increasing access to abortion, but also trying to stop women from receiving meaningful support from pregnancy resources that provide them with material support, education, counseling, diapers, baby clothes, car seats, you name it. Resources that support women through pregnancy and beyond and serve the communities their communities. Pregnancy centers are increasing their life-affirming work post-Dobbs. In just the 6 months after Dobbs, 32,000 more babies were born in the United States. That makes the work of pregnancy centers, isn't that amazing? That really makes the work of pregnancy centers so critical to supporting the mothers and families of these babies. In 2022, pregnancy centers reportedly met with clients over 16 million times and provided services valuing almost $400 million. Of these millions of client sessions, 97 reported a positive experience. These numbers speak to why Americans support pregnancy centers. But sadly, pro-abortion politicians and government officials nationwide are actively seeking to undermine pregnancy centers and impede their life-saving work. The threat to pregnancy care centers is real and growing. Over the past 5 years, there have been more and more measures targeting pregnancy centers by trying to restrict their fundamental rights and seeking to eliminate the positive impact that they have. In 2023, 32 measures were introduced in 15 states attacking pregnancy centers. Anti-pregnancy center measures became law in California, Colorado, Illinois, and Vermont. This is more than double the number of anti-pregnancy center measures that were considered in 2022, in which 14 measures were considered in 9 states. If you look back to 2021, just the year before Dobbs, only 2 states considered measures against pregnancy centers. And if 2020, 2019, only Connecticut was considering anti-pregnancy center measures. The numbers are increasing, and ADF has been at the forefront of the fight to protect pregnancy centers from these legislative attacks. Back in 2018, we achieved a great victory at the Supreme Court for pregnancy centers in the case of NIFLA v. Becerra. That's the National Institute of Family and Life Advocates versus Becerra, when the Supreme Court affirmed that the government can't force pro-life pregnancy centers to speak its message on abortion and promote abortion. In that case, the California law forced pregnancy centers to post signs advertising free abortions paid for by the government that would drown out the pro-life center's own message, their own life-saving, life-affirming message. The Supreme Court found this was unconstitutional and ruled that pregnancy centers should be free to serve women without fear of government punishment or interference with their message. But this victory hasn't stopped measures against pregnancy centers. In an ongoing case in Illinois, ADF has been defending pro-life doctors and pregnancy centers against a law that would force them to violate their conscience and refer for abortion. Under the Illinois law, pregnancy centers and doctors who object to being involved in abortion, whether for moral, ethical, or religious reasons, are still being forced to participate and facilitate abortions by referring women for abortions or giving them a list of providers that they reasonably believe can offer women abortions. The law also forces pro-life doctors and pregnancy centers to talk about the so-called benefits of abortion, when these medical professionals know that abortion ends the life of an unborn human being. The Illinois law specifically targets these pro-life medical professionals because of their views. But government hostility toward people of faith is unconstitutional, and it has no place in our society. The state can't force pregnancy centers to choose between violating the law and violating its convictions. So we're urging the court to put this issue to rest and allow pro-life pregnancy centers to continue their life-affirming work without fear of government punishment. And in another case, NIFLA v. Clark, we actually have our client Jean Marie Davis here today, who you'll be hearing from as well. There we're challenging a Vermont law that singles out pregnancy centers and claims that they offer false and misleading advertising. It censors the center's ability to advertise their free services, trying to silence pregnant centers' speech and outreach and shut them down. If pregnancy centers advertise their services in a way that Vermont's pro-abortion attorney general considers misleading, they're facing fines of up to $10,000 per violation. And the law is vague. For example, one witness during a legislative testimony said that even naming your clinic the Women's Center should violate the law because it would lead women to believe they can reasonably get an abortion there. And if you ask the Connecticut governor, the Connecticut's pro-abortion governor in a similar law in that state has said that it could be misleading to call for a pregnancy center to refer to themselves as offering reproductive health care services if they don't also offer abortions. Frankly, what's misleading is calling abortion health care in the first place. Women should be empowered with life-affirming options, emotional support, and pregnancy resources. But the Vermont law impedes women's ability to receive these critical services. It could stop non-medical staff and volunteers from providing clients with any information related to their pregnancy, offering pregnancy tests, or talking to women about their options, all services that don't require a medical license. And since this law only applies to pro-life pregnancy centers, an abortion clinic can offer the same information to women without these restrictions. Vermont's law also makes the life-saving abortion pill reversal treatment illegal. Not only that, it limits pregnancy centers' ability to be able to advertise about speak about the effectiveness of abortion pill reversal because they might fear that they would be subject to penalties. For example, our client in that case, Aspire, created a video about the effectiveness of abortion pill reversal and wants to post the video on their website, but they're afraid if they do that, the Attorney General is going to come after them and penalize them with fines. Now, my fellow panelist, Jonathan Keller, is going to be talking more about this, but I just want to tee up the conversation and highlight just how astounding it is that states are trying to prevent women who regret their chemical abortions from accessing life-saving treatment for their babies. I just want to talk a little bit about, to intro this, I want to talk a little bit about what is chemical abortion and the state that's, the case that's going to be heard at the US Supreme Court this term. Currently, more than half the abortions in the United States are done by chemical abortion. This involves a 2-drug regimen. A woman takes mifepristone followed by misoprostol. Now, that first drug that a woman takes, it is a progesterone blocker. So it blocks the pregnancy hormone progesterone and cuts the baby off from nutrients so that the baby dies in its mother's womb. And the second drug, misoprostol, it induces the woman into labor so that she passes the dead baby. These drugs are approved for women to use up to 10 weeks when the baby is the size of a strawberry. The whole process is traumatizing, forcing women to manage their abortions alone without any medical care and being told to flush the bodies of their little babies down the toilet. This spring, the Supreme Court will be hearing arguments in our case, FDA versus Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine, challenging FDA's removal of safeguards that once applied to the use of chemical abortion drugs and authorizing mail order abortions. Chemical abortion pills are dangerous. They're putting women in emergency rooms all across the country. Reports show that more than 20,000 ER visits per year in the US as a result of dangerous chemical abortion drugs. And many women immediately regret their decision. So there's this treatment, the abortion pill reversal treatment that doctors have developed that is a surge of the natural pregnancy hormone progesterone that is given to a woman to support her pregnancy and to save that baby and to help give her the choice of whether or not she wants to keep that baby after making a decision to take the first chemical abortion pill. But states want to call it junk science and say pregnancy centers are misleading women. What harms women is cutting off access to medicine that will help them save their babies and providing them support. I just want to conclude by talking about the effective protection for pregnancy centers. In order to effectively protect pregnancy centers that are doing this life-saving work and service in our communities, laws need to prohibit states from forcing pregnancy centers to perform or refer a woman for abortion. They need to ensure pregnancy centers are free to provide pregnancy care, material resources, counseling, and education to women consistent with their beliefs. And they need to ensure pregnancy centers are free to speak a message of life and express themselves without fear of censorship and government attacks. Thank you.
Well, I know I learned something, and I really hope y'all did too. The fact that just naming your pregnancy resource center a certain thing could somehow violate a law is quite shocking. So next we have Jonathan Keller, a great friend of the March. Jonathan Keller is the president and CEO of California Family Council. Jonathan is also one of our amazing State March partners in California, who we've been partnered with for 3 years now. Under Jonathan's leadership, CFC pursues a mission of advancing God's design for life, family, and liberty through California's church, capital, and culture. Alongside local, state, and national allies, Jonathan guides CFC in shaping policies that promote the sanctity of life, the strength of marriages and families, and the necessity of religious freedom. Before leading CFC, Jonathan began his career serving on staff with Right to Life of Central California. He also supported Lila Rose in launching Live Action. His strong academic foundation from Fresno Pacific University has shaped his professional journey and commitment to ethical leadership. Jonathan and his wife live in Central California with their 2 sons. She is a saint. She's a lovely woman. Where they're active members of Campus Bible Church. Welcome, Jonathan. We're so happy to have you here today.
Well, I just want to say that line about my wife being a saint is not in my official bio, but Felicia said it because it is true. So my wife, Julia, is wonderful. So it's great to be with all of you today. And I have just a few short minutes to share with you very briefly about some of the things that are happening in California and how that affects all of you in the rest of the country. Unfortunately, I know some of you may not care about Gavin Newsom, but I can assure you Gavin Newsom cares about you. And that is something we see on a regular basis, what he is pushing and some of the things you'll see in the slideshow. If you have not heard about it, I think it is a scary reality, the level of national ambition he has and the way that what he is doing is being exported to all of the rest of the country, even states that the rest of y'all are doing a wonderful job of turning more and more pro-life. But at the very beginning of this, I know we talked about this already. I just wanted to pause. Do any of you ever get upset? Any parents in the room? Just ask that first. Any of you ever get upset when you do something for your kids and then they're just like on to the next thing and they never say thank you? Does this ever happen occasionally? The reason I put that slide up there of the Roe v. Wade being overturned is that I just think it's important for us to pause and remember, here we are getting ready to march on the 51st anniversary of Roe versus Wade, and it's gone. We have a lot of challenges, we have a lot of difficulties, but I never, ever want us to lose sight of the gratitude and the thankfulness to Almighty God for the gift that he's given us with that. So very quickly, we heard earlier that there is an important, sad trend of legislation happening all across the country. And there's also ballot initiatives happening all across the country. In California in 2022, in the immediate aftermath of Dobbs, we saw Proposition 1, our version of the state constitutional amendment, pass. Tragically, this passed by a vote of 66 to 33. It was a 2-to-1 margin in the state of California. The remarkable thing to me about this, and this is a warning for the rest of you, I know there's a more recent example of this with what we saw happen just in Ohio a few months ago. But in California, during this same election season, Abortion on demand got 66% of the vote. Gavin Newsom only got 59% of the vote. That means there were thousands, hundreds of thousands of non-Democrats. I won't say necessarily Republicans, I won't necessarily say conservatives, but there were people out there who did not like Gavin Newsom, who were not on board with some of his other policies, but they flipped their ballot over after voting for the Republican candidate for governor, and they voted for unlimited abortion on demand in the state of California. That is a huge challenge that our movement is going to face, and it's a reason why pregnancy centers, sadly, are facing so many attacks. It's because the good work that they are doing is not known by even people that are supposedly on our side of the aisle. There is in California a group, I want to play for you just an example of the template that California is trying to export to the rest of the nation. Some of you may have heard of this group called the Future of Abortion Council. If not, I'm just going to let them explain to you in their own words who they are and what they do. This is not a video I put together. This is their video that they put together as a promotional piece on their website.
The Future of Abortion Council, made up of state legislators and pro-abortion organizations, presented its list of recommendations.
Forward to doing more and doing better as a state to truly stand tall as that reproductive freedom state that we have so proudly defined.
Where I was a legislator, I worked and provided critical services to women at a women's reproductive health clinic.
We want to make sure that we level the playing field and make abortion access within reach for anyone who's seeking services.
Las mujeres latinas necesitamos el derecho al aborto porque no tenemos los recursos, porque tenemos otros hijos, porque queremos superarnos económicamente y físicamente.
Today, we released 45 recommendations for what the state of California can do to ensure that we remain a reproductive freedom state and we ensure that access to abortion is something that we expand and preserve for anyone that's seeking care.
Hope that all folks who are trying to access abortion care across the country know that they have a friend and a supporter in California.
26 states are predicted to reverse their abortion bans if the Supreme Court hands the decision-making process back down to the states.
This can be life-saving medical care, and I think we have a responsibility to provide that.
This is the state-funded, state-promoted abortion initiative by the largest state in the United States. Our taxpayer dollars are going to not just support women through services, but they're actually trying to directly kill children, and they're trying to put together glossy videos, this broad-based coalition of people who are going to fight on this issue. So, a couple of more slides. I'm going to try to get through this quickly. One of the ways that they've been doing this is through things like this website. There is now an abortion.ca.gov website that is being marketed all across the country. I want to point out there's not a pregnancy.ca.gov. There's not even a healthcare.ca.gov. The top level domain that our state has chosen to advertise and market is abortion.ca.gov. And our governor and our legislature is very happy to offer a very particular kind of reproductive health care to any woman in the United States that wants to get it. Not prenatal care. If you are from Alabama, Texas, Louisiana, Florida, you can't fly to California and get state-funded prenatal care. You can't fly here and get critical perinatal surgeries for children that are early in their life. But if you want to come to the state of California and have an abortion, California is happy to pay for that. Through one of the services that we're offering, California has started to put up billboards. In fact, this was during the 2022 governor's campaign. Governor Gavin Newsom put up billboards across the nation. You can see at the bottom, it says paid for by Newsom for California Governor 2022. Gavin Newsom put up these billboards all around the country telling people you can come to California, go to this website, abortion.ca.gov. California not only will give you a free abortion when you get here, but through state-funded grants to so-called abortion benevolence funds, California will actually cover your flights, your hotel room, your Uber drive to and from the airport and to and from the clinic. This is in the actual text of the legislation, if you can believe it. Maybe the most perverse thing that California offers to cover when you come to California to get an abortion is childcare. So if you come to California with one of your born children to take the life of their younger sibling, California will help pay for that. Gavin Newsom, though, as I mentioned, he knows his audience. He knows if he's going to talk to different audiences around the country. And California, if he wants to go to your states where you've been doing amazing pro-life work to try to support pregnancy resource centers, you've been marching for life, maybe you have a state march, he knows that he has to target people using language that appeals to them. So look at what he did with this billboard in a southern state. Need an abortion? California's ready to help. Visit abortion.ca.gov to learn more. But then notice at the bottom, that's basically where I was too. Gavin Newsom actually, his campaign actually quoted the words of Jesus and saying it is loving your neighbor to offer her free abortion health care, quote unquote. So this short video is what we did as a response on this issue.
I'm proud to be able to put those billboards up, proud to be in a position to be able to afford it and do so through the campaign. Our donors are asking for more of them. They believe in women's freedom and right to choose.
So I want to tell you, I want to bring you hope from the most pro-abortion crazy state in the nation, that there is still hope. I am not always optimistic, but I am always hopeful because we serve a God of hope. And I want to tell you very quickly, teeing off our friends from ADF, just a quick slideshow on positive things. Over the last year, we have seen, these were some of the great headlines that we saw last year in response to some of our work defending pregnancy centers. California is a haven for reproductive rights, but anti-abortion crisis pregnancy centers still thrive. And I love this headline from the LA Times. Even in California, anti-abortion crisis pregnancy centers seem to be untouchable. Now that is because largely, this is a press conference that we did down in front of a pregnancy center in Santa Clarita. This is largely because of the work of our friends at ADF and other wonderful friends. Last year, California had to pay $192,000 to ADF to settle a case in which they had tried to regulate protesting outside of pro-abortion centers like Planned Parenthood. My friends at Right to Life Central California won that case alongside ADF, so thank you, ADF, for that. And I want to just say that the work that pregnancy centers are doing, it is absolutely the most important thing that can happen moving forward, because even in deep blue states like California, even in deep blue states like where you're at, the reason that Gavin Newsom and other pro-abortion ideologues are trying so hard to silence your work, if you work at a pregnancy center, if you pray outside for 40 Days for Life, the reason they're doing it is because they know it's effective. They can have all the marketing campaigns, they can have all the websites, they can have all the funding, and they know that our God is still stronger. So I want to encourage you, all the pregnancy centers out there, continue what you're doing, never lose heart, and God bless you.
One of the things I think I find most impressive about Jonathan is that he exudes so much hope in the face of so much adversity. He is such a great example to all of us that fighting for life is a noble and worthwhile mission and should be filled with joy and hope and love because we are on the side of truth. Next, I would like to introduce Jamie Dangers, a friend and fellow lobbyist on Capitol Hill. Jamie Dangers serves as Legislative Director for Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America. In this role, she serves as the link between SBA Pro-Life America and congressional staff in both the United States House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, and is responsible for lobbying activities to implement the organization's federal legislative goals. Jamie came to SBA Pro-Life America from Capitol Hill, where she led on pro-life and religious freedom legislative issues for members of Congress. She previously worked in the pro-life movement for nonprofits in Washington, D.C. and in Colorado Springs, and in communications and youth ministry. Jamie has been instrumental in advancing pro-life legislation on Capitol Hill, and I just want to welcome her today.
Thank you so much, Felicia. It's an honor to be here with you all. The March for Life is one of my favorite times. I moved to DC in January of 2013, about a week before the March for Life. Didn't know a soul, but it was on my bucket list, so I went in the sleet, and it was like awful and wonderful all at the same time. And it's just a privilege to keep marching year after year as we keep working. We're a hardy bunch, and that's needed. You've heard some of the challenges we're up against. On the federal side of things, I love the word that Jonathan gave us today about being hopeful when it is hard to be optimistic. The numbers up here are not what we would hope. The policies that are happening here are the kind we are fighting against, in large part from the administration. But there's a lot going on. So we know there's a lot of work ahead of us. We know in the last year and a half, really good things have happened in the states, really hard things have happened in the states. But as you heard, with more babies being born now, there are glimmers of hope, and it is showing that our work is proving effective. What we are also seeing, and what I think Jonathan showed very well, is that it's not a pro-choice, pro-life thing. It's pro-abortion versus pro-life. Right now, there is no desire on the abortion side for actual real choice. They just want abortion over everything, above all, no excuse. And that's what we're fighting against up here in DC. The Biden administration, despite Dobbs, is still pretending that abortion is a constitutional human right. And so they're trying to weave it through executive action into every part of the federal government. And like Gavin Newsom did, we also now have reproductiverights.gov up here. And our Vice President, Kamala Harris, and the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Javier Becerra, are currently on a campaign to show what still needs to be done to fight for abortion rights in the country as they grieve the loss of Roe while we celebrate it. The Biden administration is really good at verbal acrobatics. They take laws that have been on the books for many, many years, and they twist the words to mean something they were absolutely never intended to do, and somehow that seems to give them the justification to completely break the law and do whatever they want to do. For example, the term abortion funding has always encompassed everything to do with the abortion. Any of the expenses necessitated by the abortion were always considered part of abortion funding. And the status quo posture of the United States government ever since the passage of the Hyde Amendment back in the 70s is that we don't use taxpayer dollars to pay for abortion, which includes all the expenses necessitated by the abortion. But Biden administration decided, never mind, we're not going to go with that. And now they are supporting, they're funding abortion travel for service members and their dependents through the Department of Defense. And they've decided that veterans hospitals that used to never be allowed to do abortions now can at our expense. And for all intents and purposes, like Jonathan was saying in California, the Department of Health and Human Services has basically become an abortion marketing agency. as Erica was saying, chemical abortion. The abortion drug issue has become one of their main focuses, and they have decided to allow through the FDA for the dangerous chemical abortion drugs to be made available through the mail. This makes it even more dangerous to the women and girls who are on the receiving end. And it is also in violation of longstanding law. They're peddling lies that create unnecessary but very real fear and confusion. But they have to rely on lies because the truth is on our side. And I love this year's theme for the March for Life, with every woman, for every child. We, as the pro-life movement, we want girls and women to have the resources and support they need so they don't have to make a choice between their baby and whatever the and might be. We want to actually be there for them, not just give them a quick fix and move on with life. Pro-abortion politicians, on the other hand, want to silence those efforts. And in just a second, I'm going to show you a brief clip of United States Senator Elizabeth Warren. What she says perfectly encapsulates the alarming trend that we're seeing up here on the federal level of attacks against pregnancy centers. They're trying to restrict the ability of women and girls to get real, compassionate care. So let's watch this brief clip of Elizabeth Warren.
Crisis pregnancy centers that are there to fool people who are looking for pregnancy termination help outnumber true abortion clinics by 3 to 1. We need to shut them down here in Massachusetts, and we need to shut them down all around the country.
So the good news is we outnumber them. I guess that's good news, right? But it isn't just radical progressives who are saying things like this. Several months ago, Congressman Josh Gottomer, who is a so-called moderate, and he is a co-chair of the Bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus up here on Capitol Hill. He rallied outside the Lighthouse Pregnancy Resource Center in Hackensack, New Jersey, and announced his statewide push to close pregnancy centers across his state. Here's a quote from this moderate Democrat. "Women go to these healthcare hoax clinics thinking they will get real medical help, but instead they are greeted by people with no medical background whose goal is to brainwash women with their own ideological agenda. We need to do everything we can to shut down these brainwashing cult clinics." So it's not just coming from the radical progressives. Somehow this has become central to the pro-abortion side in general. And we know that pregnancy centers in many ways are the beating heart of the pro-life movement. Not only do they help moms who are making pregnancy decisions, but they help dads, families, kids who are already born. They help equip people for healthy relationships and for stability. And they meet people where they are. They help people after they've had abortions. They are not judgmental. They are compassionate. I've had the privilege of working many years ago at the Northwest Center here in DC. I volunteered at my local crisis pregnancy center. It was called a crisis pregnancy center back then when I was in college. And I wish people on the pro-abortion side could actually see what happens there. I think they would be stunned by the love and compassion and truth that is spoken there. And like Erica was saying, a 97% positive experience rate is pretty great. I didn't really know that was even possible. And by the way, that's a higher positive experience rate than Chick-fil-A. So that's who we are as a pro-life movement. We want to protect the unborn, but we also want to protect moms and families. And we understand that there are very real obstacles that women and girls face during unexpected pregnancies. And while Dobbs freed America from the lie that abortion is a constitutional right, it couldn't remove the reasons that lead women and girls to think that abortion is their only option. So that's what we have to be working to address, while we also work to protect the unborn. Right now, there are 2 bills that the House of Representatives is considering, 2 bills that should get votes today, maybe tomorrow, depending on the storm. And the first one is addressing something that the Biden administration has done. The Department of HHS has proposed a rule that is a discriminatory rule against pregnancy centers, ensuring that they can no longer be eligible for funding through the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families Funds, the TANF fund. Pregnancy centers have been eligible for these for decades, and a few states are actively using funds through TANF. The Biden administration is trying to cut that off, and the US House of Representatives is saying, no, you cannot do this. It's discriminatory, you're singling them out, and you can't do this. The bill is being led by Representative Michelle Fischbach, Congressman Chris Smith, and Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. And hopefully that will be passing today. And then the other one, first I want to just have you imagine a scenario with me. You're 19 years old. You're on an athletic scholarship at college, and you're working many hours to try to keep your grades up so that you can keep your scholarship. Life is exciting, stressful, very full, and then you find out you're pregnant. What are you going to do? How are you going to keep your scholarship if you can't compete? How are you going to keep your scholarship if you're feeling sick and you can't keep up with your homework and so your grades drop? What are you supposed to do? This is a very real scenario. This is not uncommon. Nearly a quarter of undergrad students will be pregnant or parenting at some point during their education, their higher education. Well, this is one scenario that the House of Representatives is working to address right now. They're also trying to pass, scheduled to pass today or tomorrow, the Pregnant Students' Rights Act. And all it would do is ensure that colleges and universities at the beginning of every school year make their students aware of the rights, accommodations available to them if they become pregnant and carry their child to term, and if they are parenting. That's good news. All it is saying, guys, there's options for you. So when a girl finds out she's pregnant and she doesn't know what to do, well, she's already heard, if I become pregnant, these are the things available to me. These are the accommodations. These are the rights that I have as a student. And so it seems like it should be extremely common sense, but I just want to read very quickly. I saw an email this morning that's lobbying against these bills, and it says, the pregnant students' rights impedes the ability of pregnant students to make personal reproductive health choices and neglects to address essential concerns of pregnant students, like housing assistance and things. Well, no, none of those things are true. All it is saying, if you're pregnant, these are the rights and accommodations available to you. Very common sense, or should be. There are a lot of other bills that members of Congress are working on that we are so excited about to help women and girls as they are making these very important decisions. And so, as Jonathan said, let's remain hopeful and keep working towards these, and let's celebrate the little wins that we get along the way, because we still have a long road ahead of us, but no one's giving up on this. So we'll keep fighting together. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jamie. So I think you heard from Jamie why it's critical we keep marching in DC and not just in our states. There's such a huge fight for life happening right there on Capitol Hill. So I'm actually really excited. We have a special guest in the room. We have Jean Marie Davis. She's joining us from Vermont. She is Executive Director of Branch's Pregnancy Resource Center, and she's going to quickly tell her story. And something Jamie said, she is the beating heart of the PRC and pro-life movement. So I'm just so excited that she can briefly share her story and then join the panel, and we'll have a quick Q&A.
I think it's still morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jean Marie Davis. I am the Executive Director at Branch's Pregnancy Resource Center in Brattleboro, Vermont. We are the one, along with Aspire, who are fighting to keep our centers open in Vermont, excuse me. But a little quick story about who I am, where I come from, and why do I even involved in the pro-life. So from the age of 2 to the age of 29, I was human trafficked by family members, by various pimps. I was trafficked in 33 different states. At one point, I had a family member say to me, the only way you'll be married is if you're in a pimp and hoe relationship. At the age of 29, I was heavy into crystal meth and I was wanting to commit suicide. And yet I still saw my stomach growing and I didn't understand why. Because I was with crystal meth, you lose a lot of weight and I was still eating and I didn't get that. And so I went and I found out I was pregnant and I had pimps. I had many different gang members, family members who wanted to kill me and who wanted to kill my child. I may cry, just bear with me. The police told me that I had 4 states to choose from to get out of the state because my life was such in shambles and severely in danger. And they said Alaska, Washington, Maine, and New Hampshire. Go figure. And out of those 4 states, 27 shelters denied me and said that my situation was too severe. But in New Hampshire, there was a woman who said, yes, we'll take you into the shelter. And so I was living in a homeless shelter, a domestic violence homeless shelter, and she told me about a pregnancy center. And I'll never forget walking into the pregnancy center and meeting a woman named Phyllis Phelps. I remember when she sat there and she said to me, how can I help you? And I broke down and cried. I had not heard that in over 10 years from somebody. It was either lay on your back, be raped multiple times, put a knife to your throat, hear some gunshots going past your ears, is what I was used to. I told her that I wanted to have an abortion. I didn't want my child to go through the same life I was going through. But she told me about a man named Jesus. And she said, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believeth in him would not perish, but have everlasting life. For he did not come into this world to condemn this world, because this world was already condemned. And I said to her, okay, I don't trust any man, but I will try this man named Jesus out. That was 10 years ago. That same woman gave me an ultrasound and I heard my child's heartbeat and I said, yes, I'll keep him. And then I looked at her and I said, now what? I'm homeless and I'm pregnant. How are you going to help me? She told me about a program. She helped me get into that program. I graduated. I was able to have my son. I went off to be in Bible college. And then a few years later, because I had challenged Phyllis Phelps with that question, she had created a ministry called House of Hope, New Hampshire, to where women like myself, after they go to the pregnancy center, because we're considered basically an ambulance, you would say, she became the hospital. So if a woman came and needed help or needed a long-term residential programs, we would send her to there and they would help. From there, that same woman that told me about a man named Jesus and saved my son's life and my life is the same woman that handed me the application to be an executive director at Branches Pregnancy Resource Center. I actually just talked to her about maybe an hour ago when I found out that they had asked me to come and speak on it. I said, oh my goodness, Phyllis. And now in Brattleboro, we do the same thing. I had a woman who was a prostitute that was on the streets and I pulled over and gave her some food. And she said, I need to come to your center. I said, what's going on? She goes, I'm getting death threats. They're cutting my brake cords. I'm a prostitute. I smoke crack. I said, I know how that feels. I know what it's about. I said, you come see me. She goes, what do you do? I said, I'm the director of branches. She said, you know what? I think I'm pregnant. I want to keep this one. I've already had 4 abortions. I want this baby. That's what we do in Brattleboro. No matter what goes on in the state, that's what we do. The chief of police and I just talked today. We have connections. The hospital works with us. We also have our town manager. So no matter what's going on in the world and what's being said, I just want to let you know there's a man named Jesus. And I know they've talked about the hope, but the hope has a name and his name is Jesus. And that's why we are continuing to be able to be here. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think you can see why I wanted Jean Marie to pop up here and share her story. It touches me every time, and it honestly invigorates me to hear these stories and to share these stories with members. There's a face to why we're doing this, and sometimes it gets hard when you're doing this every day. But it's just so touching. Thank you. Anyways, I would love to just pose some questions to the panel so we can go through some of the best ways to actually take what you learned today and make an impact on whether it's Capitol Hill while you're meeting with your members tomorrow, hopefully after you march, or today, later today, or at your state capitals, because as we know, the states are a new battleground for life. So I think since I'll tee up it for Jonathan first. So I'd love to hear, Jonathan, from your experiences in California and with state legislatures, what are the most effective means of meeting with your members? How can they get the story out there about what the PRCs are doing, the critical work? What are your recommendations?
That's a great question. Well, first off, I will give a plug and say one of the best ways you can do it, if you are not currently already a state march partner, I really sincerely think you should reach out to the March for Life, find out if there's a way that you can start hosting a March for Life at your Capitol. Because I can tell you in the past, there have been times where we have done events at the Capitol. We've even brought members of the Pregnancy Resource Center movement, whether it is clients or whether it is executive directors, they have come and met with members. And usually you have, is this a C3 event or a C4 event? Okay, I'll be careful how I say this. Usually you have one side of the aisle that is very open to hearing what we talk about. And there's another side of the aisle that is much more standoffish. They a lot of times won't even give us appointments or meetings. But I can tell you now we're preparing to do our 4th annual California March for Life. And last year, we had a really unique experience. We had reporters who came out to the steps of the Capitol towards the end of the march, and they wanted to interview some of the volunteers. They wanted to interview some of the other speakers. And they said, yeah, we were actually inside the Capitol today on the 4th floor. And one of the members, one of the legislators, was doing a different press conference on a different piece of legislation. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the press conference, we heard this huge roar coming from outside the building. And everybody wondered, what is that? What is going on? And they realized, oh, it's the March for Life. And so I think that meeting one-on-one with your members is absolutely crucial. I think that it is incredibly valuable. If you are here and you are not already involved with a local pregnancy center, number one, try to get involved with them and try to take your local pregnancy center to meet with your local elected representative, whether it is your local state member or your local Congress member, because I guarantee you, Planned Parenthood is doing outreach to those members. They are inviting them to come to community events. They are inviting them to come and tour their centers. And it is vital that you put up as much marketing, even more marketing effort than Planned Parenthood does. But I would also, again, just close the loop and say, part of the thing we've seen make a huge difference in California is seeing the collective power of all of us coming together and physically meeting, physically marching at the state capitol. So if, Felicia, how many are you guys up to so far? Is it 14 this year?
We're confirmed in 14 for 2024.
So I know there is a big, huge goal moving forward of having the March for Life in all 50 state capitals by 2030. Am I remembering that?
Yeah, around there.
So there's some runway that we still have to get to that, but I would encourage all of you, whether you're here in the room with us here in a very cold Washington, D.C., or if you're watching this online, reach out to the March for Life and find out if there's a way that you can get a state march at your state capitol.
Wonderful. And Jamie, do you have anything to add from the federal level? And I totally agree, Jonathan, inviting, if you are a PRC director or PRC directors in the room, invite your members, both your state and local member and federal members to come to your center, to meet your clients, to meet the women who are being helped. That's critical. So Jamie.
I would definitely agree with that. Another thing that is very important is members of Congress need stories to tell. The other side is always telling stories that make people afraid of pro-life initiatives, pro-life laws. And we have thousands and thousands of stories of women who have chosen life and their lives have been transformed for the better. We know those stories exist. Sometimes it's hard to find them and get people who are willing to have their stories maybe told to their member of Congress. But if there's someone who's willing to come and meet one-on-one with their member and tell their story, or write in your local paper and then send that clip to your member of Congress, those stories are invaluable and they really make an impact.
Thanks, Jamie. Now, we've been talking a lot about PRCs, but I feel like we haven't nailed down into too much detail about what services PRCs provide. And I actually was at a meeting at the Hill the other day, and this is a staffer that supports our movement, and she didn't know what PRCs and maternity homes did exactly. So don't just assume that the people you're meeting with know what they do. Jean Marie, can you just quickly just run down all the services that you guys provide and PRCs provide? So I know most of us in the room know, but I think it's important to just highlight that.
So my center is a non-medical site. So since we do not have ultrasounds and sonograms that can be done, we've had to help women and men other ways. So the ways we do that is we provide them with clothing, with different items that they would need for their children. We also have provided where we have a fatherhood program. If a father is addicted to drugs or to alcohol or things like that, we have programs that they could go to where they could get better to become a good father. We also have a mother's program. We have what we just added this year, which is a human trafficking support group and a domestic violence support group, because a lot of women that have gone in there have had abortions and or is pregnant in that group. We also have a post-abortion, which is women who have already had abortion, but people do not understand when you have an abortion, you have literally killed your child. So now you have to psychologically deal with that. And that's a whole breakdown for a woman needs to have emotional and support. So that is what we also provide. Along with that, as we do at our center, we do life with each other. So that I have some women who come in who are been our clients for years, but they just need to sit in our clinic because this is the only place that they feel safe and we're their only lifeline.
Thank you. And I think Jamie may have some data, or Erica, did you want to jump in? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can just add that, so Jean Marie's clinic is a non-medical clinic, but there are also medical pregnancy centers that have physicians as their medical directors, that have nurses there to meet with women, to treat women, that have certified ultrasound technicians. So there's all kinds of different pregnancy resource centers, and those that are offering medical services as well.
Absolutely. And I know Jamie's got some actually amazing, powerful data that was worked on very hard by a lot of people. So I would love to get that information out there for you guys to write down and take with you to your meetings.
Sure. So the Charlotte Lozier Institute is the research and education arm of Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. And they just put out only a couple weeks ago a new study on the work of pregnancy centers around the nation. So you can find this if you go online to Lozier Institute. Lozier is Lozier, lozierinstitute.org/PCR, not PRC, because it's Pregnancy Center Report, PCR. But they list a lot of the services and the percentage of pregnancy centers that do these kinds of services. So, for example, they do the material support, they do the emotional support. There's sexual risk avoidance education for teens. They do after abortion support. 81.9% of pregnancy centers offer ultrasounds. 87.7% offer parenting and prenatal education. 89.2% are offering material support. And then there's a lot that are starting to do things like STI and STD testing and treatment, lactation and breastfeeding consults, all kinds of creative ways of really caring for people. This report is called Pregnancy Centers Offer Hope for a New Generation. And again, you can find it on lozierinstitute.org/PCR.
Thanks, Jamie. And that's a great resource. It's always helpful to have something to point to when you're in meetings with members. So you can bring that report with you to when you meet with your members. You can tell the personal stories. You have the data to back it up of the services that these providers are giving to women, empowering women. These are not just some clinics that are trying to deceive and hurt women. It's the complete opposite, as we all know. So it's so critical as you go out in your communities to talk with your members, both on the state and federal level, and really educate them on the beauty and love and compassion that is the pro-life movement. And I think you heard today why we need to keep marching and why it's important to become an advocate for life. So I'm excited to say that we have an opportunity at the March where you can in fact do that. We have a March for Life Advocate Network where you can take out your phones right now and text PRC to 73075. Again, that's PRC to 73075. And we will keep you up to date on all the latest news that's happening across the country, whether it's actually pinpointed to your state, which will send updates and ways that you can actually alert your legislators, send text, tweet, email your legislators on important and critical votes that may be happening. We will do the same on the federal level. It's a really great way to get engaged and activated. And as you heard Jamie say, that there will hopefully be 2 pro-life votes in the U.S. House of Representatives today. So that's incredibly exciting. And if you join this network, you can get engaged in that as well. You will have the opportunity to, in fact, email and text and tweet at your legislator, letting them know you want them to support pregnant students at universities. You want them to save funding for PRCs across the country against attacks by the Biden administration. So really, this is a great way to get engaged, even if you can't necessarily meet with your member for one reason or another. It's a great way to call to action. So again, okay, so we got the map up there. Let's see. How are we looking? Well, that middle part of the country is looking a little sad. So everybody virtually, I'm sure there's some folks out in those states, maybe Texas, nobody in Texas? Oh gosh, come on. Anyways, so text PRC to 73075. So as you heard, every voice counts, and we really want you to get engaged. And there's also so many other amazing organizations that do the work that we all do. Obviously, SBA on our panel, as far as on the federal level, USCCB, United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, National Right to Life. I mean, you name it, there's so many organizations that are doing this critical work that you can engage in. Obviously, Family Policy Counselor. Oh, I'm sorry, Jonathan. Yes, Family Policy Counselor, amazing. But so many amazing organizations. So I hope the question was answered today, that we've been hearing from some folks of why we need to keep marching. And I think we heard that loud and clear. And again, I want to thank all of you for being with us today. And I really challenge all of you, whether that's meeting with your member, emailing your member, whatever that looks like, take the next step to advocate for life. So this ends the Marching 101 program. However, I'm excited to announce and encourage you to stay for in this room or virtually for other educational events that are actually going to be happening throughout the day. And immediately following this, we will have Leadership Institute, and Dina's here with me, and she will be speaking to winning pro-life elections. So we really hope that you stay on, whether virtual or in the room, and continue learning about pro-life messaging and how you can really impact the movement. And so, Dina, I'm so excited to have you here with you. I'm going to hand it off to you, pass over the torch to continue this educational day and event. So thank you, and thank you to our amazing panelists. I want to just